Danny Carter had been awake for 19 hours straight, and his stomach was screaming at him louder than the broken engine he had just finished. Repairing the cargo hauler had taken 6 hours longer than expected because some genius had installed the fuel injectors backwards. And now Danny wanted nothing more than food and maybe 5 minutes where nobody yelled at him about deadlines. He wiped the grease from his hands onto his already filthy work jumpsuit and wandered through the corridors of Station Volante Prime, searching for anything that resembled a cafeteria. The lower decks where he worked had food dispensers that produced gray paste claiming to be nutritious. But Danny had eaten enough recycled protein to last a lifetime. Tonight he wanted real food. Even if he had to spend half his weekly wages to get it, found himself in an elevator that climbed higher than he had ever gone before, past the industrial sectors and the commercial zones, into levels where the walls were polished white and the air smelled like flowers. Instead of engine coolant, the Celestial Promenade. According to the signs written in 12 different languages, Danny knew he probably did not belong here. But his hunger outweighed his common sense. The restaurants here had actual windows looking out into space, with tablecloths and candles and prices. That would make his supervisor faint. He walked past 3 establishments before finding one that seemed slightly less intimidating than the others. The host at the entrance was a tall Volante with silver skin and 4 arms, wearing robes that probably cost more than Danny made in a year. "Do you have a reservation?" the host asked, looking at Danny's grease-stained clothes with barely concealed disgust. "No. I just wanted to grab something to eat," Danny said. "We are fully booked for the evening." Danny's stomach growled loud enough that the host actually took a step backward. "Look, I've been working since yesterday morning, and I haven't eaten anything except a protein bar that tasted like cardboard," Danny said. "Is there anywhere I can just sit down for 20 minutes? The host seemed ready to call security when another patron walked in. Clearly someone important based on how the host immediately abandoned Danny to greet them. Danny took the opportunity to slip past and into the restaurant. The interior was stunning, with floating light fixtures and tables arranged around a central fountain that defied gravity. Water flowing upward in spiraling patterns. Most tables were occupied by alien species Danny could not even name. Creatures with tentacles and wings and crystalline bodies. He spotted an empty table near the back, partially hidden behind some kind of shimmering curtain that sparkled like starlight. Perfect, he thought. Somewhere quiet, where nobody would notice the dirty human mechanic. He sat down with a relieved sigh, picking up what he assumed was a menu from the table. "Okay, let's see what kind of fancy alien food I can actually afford," he muttered to himself. That was when he noticed he was not alone. Across the table sat a young Volante woman in an elaborate hover chair that hummed softly with advanced technology. Her body was completely still. Boss. Her arms resting motionless on the armrests. Her head supported by a delicate frame built into the chair. Only her eyes moved, and they were staring directly at him with an expression he could not quite read. "Oh," Danny said, his face flushing red. "I'm so sorry. I didn't see you there." He started to stand up when a small display screen attached to the arm of her chair flickered to life. Words appeared on it, glowing softly in the dim light. "You walked through the privacy barrier." Danny looked behind him and realized the shimmering curtain was not decoration at all, but some kind of force field meant to keep people out. "I thought it was just pretty lights," he admitted, feeling like an idiot. "I'm really sorry. I'll leave right now." He was halfway out of his seat when the restaurant doors burst open and 6 armed guards rushed in, their weapons trained directly on him. "Step away from the princess," the lead guard shouted, his voice echoing through the suddenly silent restaurant. "Princess?" Danny froze, his hands automatically rising in surrender. "I made a mistake," he said quickly. "I didn't know anyone was sitting here, I swear." the lead guard, a massive Volante with scars across his face and armor that looked like it had seen actual combat, grabbed Danny by the collar and lifted him off his feet. "You dare approach the Imperial air?" The guard snarled. "You dare breathe the same air as Princess Valari Catharin?" Danny's mind raced through all the ways this could end badly, and none of them were good. "Commander Sethes," a mechanical voice spoke from the display screen. "Release him." The guard hesitated, looking at the princess with confusion. "Your Highness, this human violated your sanctuary. He must be punished." He asked if I wanted him to leave. The words appeared on her screen. "He asked me, not you, not my attendants." He looked at me and spoke to me directly. Commander Sethes seemed unsure how to respond. "That does not excuse his trespass. When was the last time anyone asked me anything?" The screen displayed, "When was the last time someone spoke to me instead of about me?" The commander lowered Danny slowly to the ground, but did not release his grip. "The Emperor will hear of this. Yes, he will hear that a human showed me more respect in 10 seconds than most nobles show me in a lifetime." Danny watched this exchange with growing confusion. Still very aware that he was one wrong word away from being thrown out an airlock, the princess turned her gaze back to him, and something in her eyes made him forget about the guards entirely. "What is your name, human?" "Danny," he said. "Danny Carter. I work in the cargo bay, fixing ships and engines and whatever else breaks down there. A mechanic." "Yeah, not a very important one either." Her screen flickered for a moment before new words appeared. "Sit down." "Danny Carter." "Your Highness," Commander Sethes protested. "I am invoking guest sanctuary." She interrupted through her display. "This human is under my protection now. No one may remove him while I grant him hospitality." The commander looked like he wanted to argue further, but something in the ancient law clearly prevented him from doing so. "I will be reporting this to the Emperor," he said instead. "Tell my father I have finally found someone worth talking to." The guards retreated to the edges of the room, still watching Danny with murderous intent, but no longer trying to arrest him. Danny slowly sat back down, his heart pounding. "I'm really confused right now," he admitted. The princess studied him with those expressive eyes, the only part of her that could move freely. "Everyone who comes near me either pities me or fears me or wants something from my father." Her screen displayed, "You just wanted dinner." "I really did just want dinner." Danny agreed. Something that might have been amusement flickered in her eyes. "Then let's eat." And so began the strangest meal of Danny Carter's entire life. The food arrived on floating plates that moved through the air without any visible support, and Danny had no idea what any of it was. Small portions of colorful substances arranged in artistic patterns. Nothing that looked like actual food to his human eyes. "Is this meat or vegetables?" he asked, poking at something purple with his fork. "Neither," Valari's screen displayed. "It is cultured protein infused with mineral extracts from the moons of Volante 7. So fancy space paste." Danny said. Something shifted in her expression, and he realized she was trying to smile. "Yes, fancy space paste." Danny took a bite and found it surprisingly good, like nothing he had ever tasted before. "Okay, that's actually amazing," he admitted. "Way better than the gray stuff they give us in the cargo bays. Tell me about your work." Her screen flickered. Danny shrugged, still very aware of the guards watching his every move from across the room. "Not much to tell. Really, I fix things that break. Engines mostly. Sometimes life support systems. Sometimes the coffee machines, because apparently those are essential to station operations." "You enjoy it?" "I love it," Danny said honestly. "There's something satisfying about taking something broken and making it work again. Like solving a puzzle where the reward is that people get to keep breathing or flying or drinking their morning." Caffeine Valari watched him as he spoke, her eyes following his animated hand gestures. "Today I spent 6 hours on this cargo hauler, Because someone installed the fuel injectors backwards, Danny continued. 6 hours of crawling through tiny spaces and burning my hands on hot metal. And the whole time the supervisor is yelling at me about schedules. But when that engine finally started up and ran smooth, that made it all worth it. You see the value in things others overlook. Her screen displayed. I guess I just like fixing stuff. Most people who meet me see my chair first, Valari responded. They see a broken princess, a tragedy, a burden on the Empire. Danny frowned at that. That's stupid. Commander Sethi stepped forward at the comment. But Valari's screen quickly lit up. Let him speak. I mean, it's stupid because you're clearly not broken, Danny said. You're sitting here having a conversation with me, making jokes about space paste. And apparently, you can command an entire squad of scary guards with a few words. That doesn't sound broken to me. I cannot move my body below my neck, she replied. I cannot speak without this machine. I cannot feed myself or dress myself or do any of the things that the heir to an empire should be able to do. So you need help with some things. That doesn't make you broken. It just means you do things differently. Her eyes studied him with an intensity that made Danny uncomfortable. You truly believe that? My grandmother back on Earth had something called owls, Danny said. Couldn't move most of her body either by the end. But she was still the smartest and funniest person I ever knew. Still told the best stories. Still beat everyone at chess, even when she had to use eye movements to make her moves. What happened to her? She passed away when I was 16, but I remember everything she taught me, including the fact that people are way more than their bodies. Silence fell between them. But it was not uncomfortable. Vili's screen remained dark for a long moment before new words appeared. No one has spoken to me like this in years. Like what? Like I am a person instead of a condition. Danny did not know what to say to that. So he just kept eating over the next hour. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories and complaints and observations about life on the station. Danny told her about the ridiculous things he had found inside broken engines, including a family of small creatures that have built a nest in someone's cooling system. Valari told him about the endless parade of diplomats and nobles who visited the palace, each one more boring than the last. They all talk to my father about alliances and trade agreements while I sit there invisible. Her screen displayed. Sometimes I think they forget I can hear them. Do they know you can hear them? They know. They just do not care. Danny shook his head in disgust. That's terrible. It is normal for me. As the evening went on, Danny noticed something that bothered him more and more. Every time Valari tried to respond to something he said, there was a delay, sometimes a few seconds. Sometimes longer. Her screen would flicker and glitch, occasionally displaying wrong words or cutting off mid-sentence. Sage grew visibly frustrated each time it happened, her eyes narrowing in the only expression of annoyance she could manage. That thing giving you trouble? Danny finally asked, nodding toward the neural interface device attached to her temple. Her response came slowly, with several errors that she had to correct. It always malfunctions. I have learned to accept it. Who maintains it? The royal physicians, the finest medical minds in the entire empire. Danny leaned forward slightly, his mechanic instincts taking over as he studied the device, even from across the table. He could see problems. The wiring was unnecessarily complex. The connectors were at least 2 generations outdated, and the whole thing looked like it had been designed by someone more interested in making it look impressive than making it work properly. No offense to your fancy doctors, Danny said, but that thing looks like it was built by someone who's never had to actually use it. Valari's eyes widened slightly. What do you mean? I mean, the signal pathways are all wrong. The routing is inefficient. And whoever designed that delay feature probably thought they were being careful, but really, they were just making your life harder. You can tell all of that just by looking. I've been taking things apart and putting them back together since I was 5 years old, Danny said. I can tell when something is built for show versus built for function. The physicians say it is the most advanced neural interface ever created. Advanced and practical are not the same thing, Danny replied. The most advanced ship engine in the galaxy is useless if it breaks down every week, because nobody thought about maintenance access for the first time. Something like hope appeared in Valari's eyes. Could you fix it? Danny hesitated, suddenly very aware of what he was suggesting. I'm just a cargo mechanic. I fix engines and life support systems, not royal medical equipment. But you think you could do it? I think I could make it better than it is now, he admitted. But I'd probably need to study it first. And I don't think your commander over there would let me anywhere near you with a toolkit. Commander Sethes was already glaring at them, as if he could hear every word Valari screamed, lit up with determination. Come back tomorrow. Your Highness, I will make arrangements. Come back tomorrow and look at my interface properly. Danny knew this was probably a terrible idea. He also knew he could not say no to the hope in her eyes. Okay, he said. I'll be here. As he finally left the restaurant that night, stomach full and mind racing, Danny had no idea that his life had just changed forever. Danny returned the next day with his toolkit and a nervous feeling in his stomach that would not go away. The guards at the restaurant entrance recognized him immediately and looked like they wanted to arrest him on principle. But Valari had indeed made arrangements. A servant in flowing robes escorted him through corridors of polished marble and floating artwork, past fountains that defied gravity and windows that looked out into the endless stars. They arrived at a private chamber decorated with more wealth than Danny had seen in his entire life, where Valari waited in her hover chair with Commander Sethes standing guard behind her. You came, her screen displayed. I said I would. Danny set his toolkit on a nearby table and approached slowly, very aware of the commander's hand resting on his weapon. May I take a closer look at the interface? Valari's eyes moved in what he assumed was a nod. Danny knelt beside her chair and examined the neural device attached to her temple up close. The problems were even worse than he had suspected. Signal processors were routing through redundant pathways that added unnecessary lag. The main circuit board was using technology that belonged in a museum, and the connection points were corroding from improper sealing. How long have you had this device? Danny asked. Since I was 7 years old, after the accident that paralyzed me. And they've never upgraded the core components? They update the software regularly. Danny almost laughed. Software updates don't fix hardware problems. That's like putting new paint on a ship with a broken engine and expecting it to fly better. He pulled out a diagnostic scanner from his toolkit and ran it over the device, ignoring the way Commander Sethes tensed at every movement. Readings confirmed what he already suspected. Your physicians built this thing to be impressive, Danny said. Lots of fancy features, beautiful design. Probably cost more than my entire apartment block. But they didn't build it for you. They built it for themselves, to prove how smart they are. Explain. Her screen displayed. Danny pointed at various components as he spoke. See this delay circuit here? They call it a safety feature to prevent neural feedback, but it's set way too high, making you wait seconds for every thought to translate. A human neural interface would have this set to milliseconds. Human technology is considered primitive. Commander Sethes interrupted. Primitive but practical, Danny replied without looking at him. We build things that work for the people using them, not things that look good in medical journals. He continued his examination, making notes on a small datapad. The signal routing is inefficient, running through 12 processing nodes when it only needs 3. The connectors are degrading because nobody used proper sealant. And the whole power management system is drawing from your chair's main battery instead of having its own dedicated source. can you fix these problems? Valari asked. Danny sat back on his heels and thought about it. I can't replace the whole system. That would require medical surgery, and I'm definitely not qualified for that, but I can rewire the internal components, optimize the pathways, replace the connectors, and add a dedicated power cell. The royal physicians would never approve, Commander Sethi said. Then don't tell them. Danny replied. The commander's expression darkened. You want to perform unauthorized modifications on the princess of the Volanti Empire. I want to help her communicate without fighting her own equipment every time she... As a thought, Valari's screen lit up before the commander could respond. I want him to try, Your Highness. The Emperor will never allow this. Then I will ask him myself. The argument went on for hours as messages were sent to the Imperial Palace and responses came back demanding explanations. Danny waited in an adjacent room, eating snacks provided by servants who looked at him like he was some kind of dangerous animal. Finally, the door opened and Commander Sethis appeared. The Emperor has granted permission, he said through clenched teeth. Against all advice, he is allowing this human to modify royal medical equipment. Why? Danny asked, genuinely surprised. Because the princess asked. And apparently her request carries more weight than the concerns of every physician in the Empire. Danny gathered his tools and returned to Valari's chamber, where she waited with something like excitement in her eyes. Let's make this work better for you, he said. He worked through the night, carefully removing panels and rerouting circuits while Valari watched. It was delicate work, requiring steady hands and patience. But Danny had spent years working on systems far more dangerous than this. A wrong move on a ship's reactor core could kill thousands. But a neural interface just required the same careful attention to detail. He replaced the corroded connectors with one salvaged from his own toolkit. Parts meant for communication arrays, but compatible enough to work. He bypassed the excessive processing nodes and created direct pathways between the neural sensors and the output display. He removed the ridiculous delay circuit entirely, replacing it with a minimal safety buffer that would catch dangerous feedback without slowing normal communication. The dedicated power cell came from a backup battery he had been saving for emergencies. Small enough to fit inside the existing housing, but powerful enough to run the interface for days without draining the chair. As the station's artificial dawn began to brighten the windows, Danny made his final connections and sealed the housing. Okay, he said. Try it now. Valari's screen flickered once. Then words appeared instantly. I can think the words, and they appear, she displayed. No delay, no lag, no errors. Danny grinned. How does it feel? Like I've been swimming through mud my entire life, and someone just drained the swamp. She paused, and new words appeared with a speed she had never experienced before. I have so many things I want to say, and for the first time, I can say them as fast as I think them. Commander Sethis watched with an expression caught between suspicion and amazement. The physicians spent years perfecting that device, he said. They spent years making it complicated, Danny replied. I just made it work. Valari's screen filled with rapid text as she tested the new capabilities, thoughts flowing freely for the first time in her memory. This is incredible. Danny Carter, you have given me my voice back. That's just the start, Danny said, looking at her hover chair with a critical eye. Because honestly, your mobility system is garbage too, for the first time in 15 years. Princess Valari laughed, a sound that came from deep in her throat. Rusty from disuse but unmistakably genuine, and in a hidden observation room nearby. Emperor Kethorn watched through security cameras, with tears forming in his ancient eyes. His daughter had not laughed since the accident that took her mobility. This human mechanic had accomplished in one night what the finest minds in the Empire had failed to do in years. Word spread through the empire like wildfire, carried on solar winds. The paralyzed princess could communicate freely for the first time in her life. And the miracle had been performed not by the legendary royal physicians, but by a human cargo mechanic. From the lower decks, Danny found himself suddenly famous in the worst possible way. His supervisor called him into the office, demanding to know why Imperial guards had been asking questions. His co-workers stared at him like he had grown a second head. And strangers stopped him in quarters to ask if the rumors were true. "I just fixed some wiring," he told anyone who asked. "It's not that complicated." But to the Volante, it was very complicated indeed. The royal physicians issued statements claiming the improvements were due to their recent software updates finally taking effect. But nobody believed them. Emperor Keth Aran remained silent on the matter, which only fueled more speculation. On the third day after the repairs, Danny received a formal summons to the Imperial Palace. The message was delivered by Commander Sethys himself, who appeared at Danny's tiny apartment in the cargo worker housing block. "The Emperor wishes to speak with you," the commander said. "Am I in trouble?" "I honestly do not know." Danny put on the cleanest clothes he owned, which still had grease stains on the cuffs, and followed the commander through the station to areas he had never known existed. Imperial Palace occupied the entire upper ring of Station Volanthe Prime, a sprawling complex of gardens and fountains and architecture that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Guards stood at every doorway. Servants moved silently through gilded halls. And everywhere Danny looked, he saw wealth beyond imagination. They finally arrived at the throne room, a vast chamber with ceilings so high they disappeared into artificial clouds. Emperor Catherine sat on a throne carved from a single piece of crystal that pulsed with inner light, his forearms resting on elaborate armrests, his silver skin gleaming beneath ceremonial robes. He looked ancient and powerful and terrifying. Danny had faced malfunctioning reactors and explosive decompression events with less fear than he felt right now. "Danny Carter of Earth," the Emperor's voice resonated through the chamber. "Approach." Danny walked forward on legs that wanted to run in the opposite direction, stopping at a respectful distance from the throne. "You have caused quite a disturbance in my empire," the Emperor said. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. I did not say it was unwelcome." The Emperor studied him with eyes that had seen centuries of politics and war. "Tell me, human, why did you help my daughter?" Danny had expected threats or accusations. "Not a simple question. Because I could," he said honestly. "And because nobody should have to fight their own equipment. Just to say hello, elaborate. Her interface was built wrong. Not broken exactly, but designed by people who cared more about showing off their skills than actually helping her. I've seen it 100 times in my work. Engineers who build things to impress other engineers, instead of thinking about the person who has to use the thing every day. The physicians responsible for that device are considered the finest minds in medical technology. I'm sure they're very smart," Danny said. "But being smart isn't the same as being practical. And it's definitely not the same as caring about the patient." The Emperor leaned forward slightly. "You believe they did not care about my daughter?" "I believe they cared about their reputation, about building something impressive, about being remembered as the geniuses who created the most advanced neural interface ever made. But I don't think any of them ever asked Valari what she actually needed." Silence filled the throne room. Danny wondered if he had just signed his own death warrant by insulting the Empire's top physicians in front of their ruler. "When my daughter was injured," the Emperor said slowly, "I brought every expert from every corner of the galaxy to help her. I spent fortunes that could have funded entire colonies. I promised anything to anyone who could give her back what she lost, and none of them helped. They all helped in their own way. They kept her alive. They gave her the interface. They provided the hover chair, but none of them ever made her laugh. The Emperor's voice cracked slightly on the last word. I watched through the security feeds when you finished your repairs. I saw my daughter laugh for the first time since she was 7 years old. Do you understand what that means to a father? Danny thought about his own grandmother, about the way her eyes had sparkled with humor, even when her body had failed her. I think I do. Your Majesty, the physicians had access to resources you could never imagine. Technology beyond your comprehension, unlimited funding, and the full support of the Empire. Why did you succeed where they failed? Danny considered the question carefully. Maybe because I wasn't trying to fix a princess. I was just trying to help Valari. The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then he did something that made every guard in the room gasp in shock. Bowed his head slightly toward Danny. You have given me back my daughter's voice. You have given her joy. Name your reward, human. Anything within my power to grant is yours. Danny thought about what he could ask for wealth beyond measure. Citizenship in the upper rings, a position of power and influence. Anything he wanted could be his with a single request. Her mobility chair's hover system is garbage too, he said instead. The stabilizers are miscalibrated. The response time is sluggish. And the whole thing was clearly designed by someone who never had to navigate a crowded corridor. Give me a week with it, and I can make it actually work for her. The Emperor stared at him. You could ask for anything. And you want to continue fixing my daughter's equipment? I'm a mechanic, Your Majesty. Fixing things is what I do, for the first time in decades. Emperor Keth Oren smiled. Very well, Danny Carter, you will have your week. You will also have full access to whatever materials and tool you require. And you will have the official title of Royal Technical Advisor, so that my physicians cannot interfere with your work. I don't need a fancy title. Take it anyway. It will make the paperwork easier. Danny nodded. Still slightly dazed by the whole experience, Commander Sethes, the Emperor called the scarred warrior step forward. Yes, Your Majesty? You will provide whatever assistance Mr. Carter requires and ensure his safety. My daughter has become fond of him, and I would hate for anything unfortunate to happen. The commander's expression suggested he would rather eat broken glass. But he bowed respectfully. As you command. As Danny was escorted out of the throne room, he heard the Emperor's voice one more time. Danny Carter. He turned back. Your grandmother would be proud of you. Danny swallowed the lump in his throat. Thank you. Your Majesty. He walked out of the palace with his head spinning, already thinking about the hover chair's stabilizer problems and how to solve them somewhere behind him. An ancient emperor watched him go with something like hope rekindling in his old heart. Perhaps humans were not as primitive as the galaxy believed. Perhaps they understood something that more advanced civilizations had forgotten: the simple power of seeing people as people. Not problems to be solved or conditions to be managed, but actual individuals worthy of respect and care. It was a lesson the Volanti Empire was about to learn in ways they never expected. 6 months had passed since Danny Carter accidentally sat at the wrong table, and nothing in the Empire would ever be the same. The Imperial Senate chamber was filled to capacity. Every seat occupied by representatives from across Volanti, space ambassadors from a dozen different species, lined the observation galleries, whispering among themselves about the unprecedented announcement that had summoned them all here today. Danny stood at the back of the chamber, uncomfortable in the formal clothes they had insisted he wear. A dark suit with silver trim that probably cost more than his old monthly salary. He had tried to refuse the invitation entirely, but Valari had asked him personally, and he had never been able to say no to her. Chamber fell silent as a door opened at the front of the room. Princess Valari Ketharan emerged, but not in her hover chair. She walked. Each step was supported by an exoskeletal framework that Danny had built over the past 6 months. A complex system of servos and sensors and support struts that responded to the faintest Neural signals from her interface. It was not pretty, not elegant, not the kind of technology that would win any design awards, but it worked. She moved slowly but steadily toward the central podium, her voice amplifier already active, carrying her words throughout the chamber through speakers Danny had wired himself. Senators, ambassadors, honored guests, she began, her voice clear and strong. I stand before you today as proof that our empire has been wrong about many things. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. For 15 years, I was told that my condition was unchangeable, that the finest minds in the galaxy had done everything possible, that I should accept my limitations and be grateful for whatever function remained to me. She paused, taking another careful step forward. Then a human mechanic sat at my table by accident and saw something that every physician and engineer and expert had missed. All eyes turned toward Danny, who wished desperately that he could disappear into the floor. He saw me. Valari continued, not my disability, not my title, not my value as a political asset, just me. A person frustrated by equipment that made her life harder instead of easier. She gestured toward the exoskeleton supporting her body. This device was not built with superior technology. It was built with superior understanding. Danny Carter asked me what I needed instead of telling me what I should want. He designed every component around my actual daily life instead of theoretical ideals. He tested and adjusted and rebuilt until it worked for me specifically. The Senate chamber was absolutely silent now. For too long, we have measured worth by physical perfection. We have hidden those who differ. We have silenced those who struggle to speak. We have called humans primitive because their technology was crude. And we were wrong. Emperor Cathoran watched from his throne with pride shining in his ancient eyes. Humans are advanced in ways we forgot to value, Valari declared. They see the person, not the problem. They build for function, not prestige. They help because they can, not because they are ordered to. She turned toward Danny. Danny Carter came from the cargo bays of our station, a worker we would never have noticed, doing a job we considered beneath our attention. Yet he accomplished what the greatest minds of our civilization could not, simply because he cared about helping another person. Danny's face burned red as every eye in the chamber focused on him. I am creating a new department within the Imperial government, Valari announced. The Office of Adaptive Technology Development, dedicated to designing equipment and systems that serve the actual needs of those who use them. And I am asking Danny Carter to lead it. More murmurs from the crowd, some approving, some skeptical. This is not charity, Valari continued. This is recognition that practical compassion is more valuable than technical brilliance. That the simplest kindness, asking someone what they need, can change everything. She took another step, then another, walking steadily across the chamber floor. I am walking today because a human treated me like a person worth knowing. Let that be the foundation of a new era, one where we judge advancement not by the complexity of our machines, but by the care we show to each other. The applause began slowly but built into a thunderous ovation. Emperor Cathar rose from his throne. Let it be recorded that Danny Carter of Earth is granted the title of Imperial Friend, the first human to ever receive this honor. His contributions to the Empire and to my family will never be forgotten. Danny wanted to protest, to say he had just been doing his job, to escape back to the comfortable anonymity of the cargo bays, but Valari was walking toward him. Actually walking, and there was nowhere to hide. Thank you, she said, her amplified voice now soft and meant only for him. For seeing me when no one else did. You were always there, Danny replied. Everyone else just wasn't looking. After the ceremony finally ended and the crowds dispersed, Valari found Danny hiding in a maintenance corridor, already examining a faulty power conduit in the wall. You could be at the celebration, she said, sitting down beside him on an actual bench. her exoskeleton humming quietly as it supported her position. "Celebrations are awkward," Danny said. "Machines make sense. You really don't want any of this, do you? The title, the fame, the position?" Danny shrugged, still focused on the conduit. "I just wanted to help you. I didn't expect it to become this whole political thing, but it has become a whole political thing," Valari said. "And I need someone I trust to help me make real changes, not just speeches." Danny finally looked up from his work. "What kind of changes?" "The kind where we stop treating people as conditions to be managed and start actually listening to what they need. Where technology serves the user instead of the designer's ego. Where a cargo mechanic's practical wisdom is valued as much as a physician's credentials. That's a lot of change for one person. Which is why I'm asking you to help me." Danny thought about his grandmother. About the years she spent fighting equipment that made her life harder. About the doctors who talked over her and the systems that ignored her needs. He thought about Valari, sitting invisible in restaurants while diplomats discussed her like furniture, struggling to express simple thoughts through an interface designed by people who never considered her experience. Thought about all the people across the galaxy who needed someone to see them, to hear them, to build things that actually worked for their lives. "Okay," he said, "but I'm still going to fix things with my own hands. No fancy office, no assistants, just me and my toolkit." Valari smiled. A real smile that reached her eyes. "I wouldn't have it any other way." They sat together in the maintenance corridor as the station's artificial night settled over the celestial promenade. A princess who could finally walk and a mechanic who had changed an empire by accident. Neither of them had planned any of this. Danny had just wanted dinner, and Valari had just wanted someone to talk to. But sometimes the most extraordinary changes begin with the simplest moments. A wrong turn, a shared meal, a single question asked with genuine care. And sometimes, just sometimes, the person who changes everything is the one that nobody expected to matter at all in the years that followed. The Office of Adaptive Technology Development would transform life across the empire, bringing practical design principles to everything from medical equipment to transportation systems. Danny would remain uncomfortable with his fame, but devoted to his work, designing solutions that helped millions of people live better lives. Valari would become one of the most beloved rulers in Volanti history, known for her compassion and her insistence that everyone deserved to be seen. And whenever anyone asked how it all started, she would tell them about the exhausted human mechanic who stumbled through her privacy barrier looking for dinner and gave her back her voice simply because it was the right thing to do. That was the human way. She would say not impressive technology or grand gestures, just people helping people, one small kindness at a time. And perhaps that was the most advanced thing of all.